Hello, how's it going? So this is going to be a little bit of a walkthrough example of how we like to optimize creative and the goals behind the overall campaign. So before we go too much into that, I want to give you guys the general structure that we're using on people that don't have CAPI imports. We're using the new Andromeda update, sort of what we want to look for whenever we're building out campaigns in the first place. So if you don't know, if you haven't watched the Andromeda videos, I've got quite a few on my YouTube channel. Please check those out first so you'll better understand exactly what we're talking about when I am going through and explaining the structure and why it is important. We also have evidence on our CProGrowth channel that'll also be linked in the description on actually proving all this stuff, not just showing you guys. So anyways, going into the structure, so we're assuming that you have an Advantage Plus campaign, one ad set you're optimizing towards, let's say, purchases, ideally first click CAPI imports, but if not, purchases or lead forms or qualified leads, something of that nature. The bottom of funnel action is essentially what I'm saying the goal is here. Now, the issue is if you don't have CAPI imports, you're not going to know if this is cold or warm traffic. So keep that in mind that when you're optimizing this is if you don't have CAPI imports via edge tag, you're not going to know if it's a cold lead or a warm lead, and so this is not going to be as clean. However, I'm making this as easily accessible as possible on how we do things, and this will still apply to you for your business. Okay, so the structure that we see here is one Advantage Plus campaign, one ad set. So we're not talking 2 ad sets, 3 ad sets, none of that. We're not talking about audience targeting. We are staying broad. We are fully leaning into that Andromeda update, which is being forced on us. But good news is it's going to make us a lot more creative marketers. And obviously, if you're not focused on the P&L, then you are going to be like, what the heck is going on? But luckily, you guys should already know that we focus on P&Ls. So when it comes to the UGC side of the equation, our goal is to have creative diversity. And the reason why we know this is because we have access to the Meta Disruptors program. The Meta Disruptors program is a group of people that work for Meta that are working with the top 20 highest ad spend accounts in the entire country, let's say. And they're giving us pretty much the insights to the back-end algorithm and how it works and what it wants, and what we see is actually driving those results from the account. So what we've noticed and what we've also learned from them is that Meta's new update, they want creative diversity. Pretty straightforward in that sense. We want creative diversity for the sake of building out different parts of the funnel, different types of people. We want to have as much differences in how people see ads versus just it being UGC being the only type of ad and there's nothing else. It looks great and then it can't scale, and then you're wondering why aren't we profitable? Because it's cycling to repeat customers. Our goal here is to educate new people and get them through the funnel and not just churn bottom of funnel people, because you're not going to be able to scale and your ROAS is going to look amazing, but your business is going to start to fail. So the goal here is to have UGC as a style, us versus them as a style, face to camera as a style, founder story. If you can do founder story, this is insanely powerful because most founders do not want to do this. So if you can do founder story, product demo, customer testimonials, features and benefits, whitelisting or partnership ads is another way, positioning tests, and then there is AI in here as well too that we've added in, but I'm gonna leave it out just for the sake that it is very new and I only want to give you guys what they gave us in the first place. So keep in mind that these ads will overlap. So you might have a UGC ad that is also an us versus them, or a UGC ad that's also face to camera, or a face to camera ad that's a founder story. So there's a lot of overlap that can happen, but we want to have at least these 9 themes in here, right? We want to make sure that we have at least these in here for creative diversity. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to, whenever we're optimizing an account or this campaign, is that we want to make sure that we only have 2, maybe 3 of each category. And so what I mean by that is that if we have a UGC ad, we have one other UGC ad in the same ad set. So our goal here is to test UGC against UGC. That's the goal of it. Now, obviously, it blends with others, and so you want to try to test as close to apples as possible in the creative format so you can get a clean enough test. Now, we might find that UGC works really well for bottom of funnel and not for top of funnel. That's totally fine. We just want to make sure that we're able to look at this from multiple different perspectives instead of just this ad versus this ad, because let's be honest, a catalog ad is going to always look better than a founder's video because catalog ads are bottom of funnel. It's the end of, or it's the smallest part of the TAM, right? That 3% that's ready to buy, that's good to go. And so that's always going to look the best because it's bottom of funnel. We do not care about that. We want to lean more into understanding the full funnel. And this is the hardest part about this new structure. And I'm going to try to simplify part of it for you guys. So if we have a scenario like this, right? So we have inside of this UGC add 1, let's say, I'll just make this add 1 and add 2. We have, and I'm going to give you guys a couple scenarios, so don't worry. So in this UGC ad here, we have high cost per conversion and high ad spend. I'm going to then compare that to the other UGC, which is low cost per conversion and low ad spend. The primary indicator of success that I'm going to see is mostly ad spend, right? So if ad spend is here and ad spend is here, and we've given this well into enough time, and I see a lower cost per conversion but way lower ad spend, and this one has way higher ad spend, I'm going to leave this one on and then cycle this one out and then bring in another UGC to test against this campaign here. I like to pretty much rotate, I would say maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on where you're at in the cycle. And the reason for that is because I want to give the algorithm enough time to fit each one of these in its proper funnel. If it has lower ad spend, it's not being prioritized as much in the algorithm's funnel. Therefore, it's not going to convert as well. Now, these are testing similar points of view, or similar, I guess you can say, apples to apples against one another, right? Similar types of themes. And so these should fit in the same part of the funnel. If they don't, which is possible, we might see an outlier of this UGC2 having low ad spend, but that low ad spend is not an outlier. It's in line with, let's say, a middle of funnel section in the campaign, which is maybe, and then this one is on high, that's focused maybe on a top of funnel aspect. And so just have to be aware of that stuff. This is why this gets really complicated. And so I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Okay, so let's say that we have this scenario here where we have our high ad spend, low cost per conversion, and then low ad spend, high cost per conversion. Same exact scenario in terms of we want to now for sure pull this out completely and add in UGC3 and not worry about it being potentially in the other part of the funnel, because high cost per conversion and low ad spend is meaning that it doesn't want to push and it's not working as bottom of funnel. And so we don't want to have this in the account anymore. We want to cycle in a different UGC. Okay, so if we have a scenario where we have these both are, let's say, very, very similar. So we can even, we can even say, if you guys want, I can do something like, these are the exact same in the funnel, like same ad spend or very close, same cost per conversion or very close. Then what we'll want to do is add in another video format in here and have the same test applied. And we're going to then cycle out whichever one has the worst results in here. Now, what we found is that when something has the most ad spend, but it isn't showing good results, that's typically a top of funnel ad, and you do not want to turn that off. And we want to look at high ad spend in ratio to the rest of the account. So if we have, for example, an ad that's spending like 50% of the budget and it's got 0 results, but we're seeing other ads get results, do not pause the highest spend ad. And the reason for that is because it's finding really good interest from users and the algorithm is pushing it because the algorithm wants to prioritize ads that are resonating with people, and it wants to prioritize ads that are actually keeping people on the platform interested and not harming the user experience. It's a very, 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 very high point there, because ad spend, I would say, is the leading indicator for success across the account for an ad itself. Now, if you do not have creative diversity and if you only have a handful of ads, that's not going to have nearly as much weight. And so that's why it's very, very important in order to get to the point where you can optimize ads with a degree of certainty, you need to have creative diversity. If you do not, then it will not, the high ad spend will not be a good indicator of success of an ad. Now, I'm going to do a reminder again, because this is very important, is that we want to test apples to apples. So we're testing, like I said, UGC1 versus UGC2, us versus them 1 versus 2, etc., etc. You can add in other angles if you would like in here. So like, for example, I know a popular one going around by Dara Denny is ugly ads. That is one that we have seen work as well too, but these are the core ones that you want to start with to have your baseline set up and then grow from there. Now, the other key point in this that I said earlier that I want to highlight one more time is that when you are looking at these ads, if you have a high repeat customer rate, realize that, and realize that that will throw this entire structure off. And you might find that in this scenario here, if we go back to this, you might find a scenario like this, where you have high ad spend and a low cost per conversion. This one has low ad spend and a high cost per conversion. This is because the algorithm thinks that UGC 1 is driving what you want for the business. And what that is you want more people to purchase from you. It doesn't know that you actually want more new customers to purchase from you. And so it's very, very, very important that you understand that warm traffic, if you have high LTV, is going to percolate across the entire account. And it's going to make things look way, way better. I mean, it's going to make this one look amazing, but not actually turn into real results for your business that you actually want to have happen. You might find that new customers actually come way more through this UGC2 that has a lower ad spend and it's a higher cost per conversion, which is very, very, very apparent. Whoops, that's way bigger than I wanted it to be. But which is very, very apparent as a relation to cold versus warm traffic. Typically, a lower cost per conversion means warm traffic, and a higher cost per conversion means cold traffic. Now, it's not 100% of the case, but if you don't have CAPI imports and you're not looking at P&L numbers, people fall in this pitfall all the time. It is not about your cost per acquisition. It also is, in this scenario, not 100% about your ad spend. It's about how this affects your P&L. And if you cannot find trends inside of here correlated to a P&L, big red flag. There's probably something that's going on. Either not doing big enough tests, or you need to have CAPI imports to see data on a more micro level. Now, the reason why we want to do CAPI imports is because we only want to feed the algorithm information that we want it to optimize for. So if I want to get more new customers, I got to optimize towards more new customers. If I don't want new customers and I just want to optimize towards purchases, then I optimize just towards purchases. So it's very, very important to understand the warm and cold traffic relationship between these two, because things might be spending lower. They might actually perform better on cold traffic. The algorithm just doesn't know that you want cold traffic. It thinks that you just want purchasers. So with that being said, hopefully this gives you guys some insight on how we actually optimize campaigns, what we look at, how we want to leverage, for example, creatives 1 versus 2, and how this can kind of grow into your main campaign. And we have accounts that just stay in one advantage plus one ad set, and they're able to scale like crazy because we're doing this creative testing structure. Media buying is at the point now where we just have to make sure that the funnel is correct, and that is the hardest part of the equation. The actual technical side of setting this up literally takes like 5 minutes. As long as you have the creative already in there, you can just copy it over. So this is going to be the hardest part whenever we run this, is optimizing the creative. And if you don't have CAPI imports, optimizing towards cold, like I said, it's going to be very, very hard to do this correctly. So if you have any doubts of anything that I said, we have another channel called CProGrowth. It'll be in the description. It has proof of all of this with case studies, with examples, and we walk through this on a pretty much twice a week basis of what exactly we're doing in the first place that's working. And if you want to have a more hands-on approach with us, we actually offer Google Ads and Meta Ads management towards P&L growth. And then we also have a school community where we have about 150 members, and we're all learning from each other, as well as we're teaching them how to grow their business with things like this, and giving you information on a weekly basis internally, as well as doing Q&As from Monday to Thursday pretty much. So super, super active community, a lot of calls. And if this is something that you're a marketer and you want to learn more about this and how we look at stuff, feel free to join that and we'll give you some more information. That'll be in the description. And if not, then you feel free to stay here and keep learning. Anyways, thanks again, and I will see you guys in the next video.